a bit about myself. I started photography around about 13 years ago. I started like probably most photographers out there. And I'm going to backtrack a bit. I was like, let's say about 10, 12, 13 years old, and I had the opportunity to go to the Kruger Park quite a lot with my parents. Every year we would go maybe 2 or 3 times. Back then it was still very affordable. And I lived up in Pretoria, so it wasn't that far. And when we got to there, I would like take my mom's camera or video camera and take footage of the animals that we see, the little bugs and what may have you. But my dad never wanted to buy me a camera because he said it's not a toy for kids. One day when you're a grown up, you can buy your own camera. And then my mom had the privilege of having twins. I'm not sure if it was such a privilege for me, though. No, I'm just kidding. But the twins didn't like going to the Kruger. Being in a 30-degree Volkswagen Combi with no aircon, driving around in the Kruger was not fun for them. So, needless to say, the trips to the Kruger became less and less for the kids. Not mom and dad, though. They just got us babysitters. So the photography there sort of died. So I was about... I'm not going to give away my age today, but 13 or 14 years ago, I went with a couple of friends to Pilanesberg, up in the north there by Sun City. And on our way there, one of my friends he unboxed a camera, so it was like brand spanking, and it was a Fuji point and shoot. I can't remember the model, but it was quite a high-end point and shoot. So he took it out, took a photo in the car, and then he said, and I asked him, can I have a look? It's so cool. And I took it. Well, he never saw that camera again that day. I took all the pictures. And about 2 weeks later, I bought my first camera. It was a Panasonic FZ5. 10 times, I think it was like 12 times optical zoom, 10 megapixels. It was like the bomb. And then I discovered a thing called Outdoor Photos Photo Gallery. So back then, the forum was very much alive. I haven't been on there for ages, so I don't know how it is today. But back then, it was the best place to learn photography in South Africa, in my opinion. Whether you shoot wildlife, studio, it was just amazing. So I started uploading my images, and people started commenting. And like any social media, you have to interact. So I started commenting on other people's stuff by just saying great, because I knew nothing. Say, great, well done. And I would read the comments that the other people wrote. And then at some stage I said to the guys, listen, stop being nice to me and grind me. I almost gave up photography because yes, after that they just grind me. And every time I think I'm uploading an amazing image, these guys would nail it. Say, oh, your composition this, or you're lighting this, or you over-edit it, or this or that. And it was crazy. But I stuck through it, and about 7 months later, I bought my first DSLR. And then about a year later, a friend asked me to photograph their wedding. And I said, there's no way, I don't want to photograph a wedding. I don't like wedding photographers. Oh, by the way, I'm a wedding photographer, you didn't know that. And you won't believe, I stayed in Pretoria, and so did they, but they wanted to get married in the Cape. And my very first wedding I ever photographed was in Arniston, Varney-Krans, where I actually stay now. But I never knew it, because that was like, I arrived in the Cape, like very late that evening. Her dad picked me up from the airport, drove me from Cape Town to the Overberg, to Arniston. I was never so scared in my life, because I don't know if you know that road between Bredasdorp and Caledon, but it goes like this. And if you don't know it, and somebody is driving and it looks like he's going to fall asleep at any stage, and you can't keep open your eyes yourself. That morning I woke up, I was in Arniston, and then I shot the wedding with a 400D Sigma 7300 that was softer than a baby's bottom. And then a kit lens and a pop-up flash. That was it. I charged them $1,000, by the way. And they paid for the flights. And then after the wedding, he drove me back to Cape Town. again, looking like he probably had a drink or two as well. Hopped on the airplane and went back to Pretoria. So I had no clue what the Overberg looked like. A couple of years later, I found myself in Bredasdorp. I stay there, and one morning I take my first trip to Arniston. I get to Arniston, and oh my hat, this is where I photographed my first wedding. So it's sort of a life skill. Okay, but I sort of went off the point. But yeah, I then bought my first DSLR, Sigma lens, and then I met some people through the forum, started going to nature reserves with them, and there was a lady called Margot, maybe she's watching, but she borrowed me her 100-400 lens, and I started using hers. So she said every time I go with her on a trip, and she wanted a guy with her because she's older lady and she just feels safe with the guy, and the deal was if I go with her, she'll teach me some Photoshop skills with the wildlife, and she'll borrow me the 100-400 because at that point I couldn't afford one. So it was like a win-win. So I went many trips. She was later on like a mother to me. That went on for quite a few years, and to cut the story short, eventually I bought my own. I bought a 70, and I moved. In the meantime, I moved to Bredasdorp, started photographing the landscapes, did another wedding or two for friends, and then, yeah, sort of see that wildlife's not really gonna bring me an income. In fact, in 2011, I won the Getaway and Fujifilm Wildlife Photographer of the Year in South Africa. And then I thought, nah, it's gonna rock it, you know? And well, it didn't. So started photographing weddings, did one or two in Bredasdorp, and then I thought, I really like it. And then I came to Somerset West for a Kiki meetup with Christine Mankies. It was one of the very, very first Kiki meetups. There was about 45 photographers that morning, and Christine and her husband, Ian, sort of talked to us. And when I walked out of that meeting, I said to myself, this is what you're going to do with your life. That's the day I made, and that was about almost 10 years ago, that I decided I want to be a wedding photographer, and that's it. I went home, started Googling, started searching, started freaking doing my best to become better and better and better and better. So I'm self-taught. What I'm going to teach you today, most of it is self-taught. I did do back in Pretoria, I still did a very small lighting course with a guy there. But yeah, I hope that you learned something today, and I want to start off by asking you guys, have any of you watched The Matrix, the movie? Who have not? Okay, I want you to please leave the workshop, okay? Go watch The Matrix, and then watch the rerun on Facebook, okay? Is that okay? No, I'm joking. If you haven't watched The Matrix yet, dan jy gat jou opvoeding. All right. So, in The Matrix, at some point, Neo, the main character, sort of realizes, he's got this aha moment and he sees the Matrix. And the Matrix, I'm not going to explain to you now, sorry if you don't know, but basically he understands his purpose in life and what he can and cannot do, and suddenly he's got these superpowers, blah, blah, blah. My point I want to get to you today is I want you to have a Matrix moment by the time you walk out of that door today with regards to light. Light is everything. There's a guy called Cliff Motner. Cliff, if you're watching, I'm not going to say that. I hope to meet you one day. Cliff Motner is an amazing photographer. You can really go follow his work. He's got a saying. He says, shadows is my canvas and light is my paint. So if you think about it, let's make this room pitch black dark. We put a model on the chair and we start adding light. And as we start adding light, the light is my paint. And only where I give light to my subject, that will show on my camera. Okay, so if certain parts of that model doesn't get light, you won't see those parts. And that's why it says darkness or then shadows is his canvas, and the light is his paint. And I'm going to show it to you because we're going to start off with the studio light. But I don't want your thoughts to stay here in the studio and think this is a studio light workshop, because it's not. It's actually a natural light workshop, in a sense. Yes, it's going to help you with your off-camera flash outside. It's definitely going to help you for indoors, like studio vibes. But the way I'm going to teach today is more about outdoor lighting than indoor, because you would slightly light things differently in a studio. However, the method I'm going to show you will work in studio. But if you do a fashion in studio type of shot, you'll do it slightly different, but it doesn't really matter, both will work. But by the time I'm done, you'll see why I say it's also a natural light workshop. By the end of the session, I'm going to let you guys ask questions, and I want to say for the guys that's watching online, I don't know how many people is online at the moment, but if you have questions, please feel free just below the video to write your comment, and somebody will then mention your comment here in the studio, and I will try and then answer your question as well. But I'll answer the questions by the end of the session so that we can flow nicely. If there's something that I really go fast on in the studio, you're welcome to quickly stop me and ask. So there are 5 types of lighting. And what I actually wanted to say earlier is that I see a lot of photographers using off-camera flash or natural light even, and they have absolutely no idea how to properly light someone. And I'm not talking about exposure. I'm talking about direction of light. They don't know how to paint with light. They don't know how to play with a shadow and then paint. Whether using a reflector, whether using the direct sunlight or a flash, I see it a lot. And this is why I believe that this is going to benefit you quite a lot. So there are 5 lighting types out there. It's not Kobus's lighting types. This is photography and even any art form. Like they use it on TV for video productions. They use it. Artists use it when they paint portraits and stuff. And then obviously photography. So the one is, and some of you might be familiar with it, but it's broad light, short light, butterfly lighting, Rembrandt lighting, and split lighting. And there's a sixth which we're not going to talk on today. It's a new one. I'm a bit old school, but it's called loop lighting. But we're going to go through each of them individually. And we're going to start off with broad lighting. So broad lighting, each of these lighting types, if I can call it that, has a couple of rules. But like I said to the group yesterday, rules are there to be broken. But to break the rules, you really need to understand it first. Okay, so if I turn my face, let's say, Heinrich, you're the photographer, and that light is my studio light, okay? Now, Heinrich wants to photograph a broad light setup on my face. So what I would do is I would turn my face like this. So now Heinrich sees the broad side of my face. For him, this is the short side because it's a shorter part that he can actually see, all right? If I do this, this is my broad side, that's my short side from where he's sitting. Does it make sense? All right, so same happened here. Now she's almost looking straight at the camera, but she is looking slightly left if you have a look. And the main light, now in photography in a studio or outside, you've got your main light. That's the main light that lights your subject. Then you would have a full light or a backlight or a hair light or whatever the case. Okay, main light. The main light is falling on the broad side of her face. Okay, that's why it's called broad lighting. But there's 1 or 2 other rules. One of the rules is the shadow on her nose is not allowed to touch the shadow of her cheek. Okay, that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is both eyes must have light. Can you see there's light in both her eyes? Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to create that. I just want to get this going. Okay guys, I have absolutely no idea what my settings are at the moment. So we're going to do a test shot or two today, this morning. I'm probably going to have to go, yeah. Let's see what the flash is, 116. That's just a test shot. There we go. Oh, that exposure is not too bad. Okay, let's do a broad light. So what I'd love for you to do is turn your body towards the flash a bit. All right, and then, yeah, that's great. You can turn your face slightly more. There we go. I'm however just going to drop the flash a bit. So the reason I'm doing it practical for you guys now is so that you can see sort of the angle that the light comes from and the way you turn your body towards the flash a bit more. You face it more that way. There we go. Perfect. So in studio, if your flash has a modeling light, it's easier to see. A modeling light is just a constant light that would come out here. Then it's easier to set up the flash. The reason I don't want to use a modeling light this morning is because most of you, if you do off-camera flash outside, you don't have a modeling light. Okay, so looking at this, it is a broad light, but it's almost going towards a Rembrandt, and once we talk about Rembrandt lighting, you'll see why I say that. So what I'm going to do is I want to shorten the nose shadow. So all I have to do is I have to drop this a bit. Okay, here we go. Turn your face slightly that way. There we go. There we go. I just want to move that bar down a bit. All right. So the same as the previous model, the picture I showed you, that's her broad side, the short side on that side, both eyes lit, shadow stops over there, doesn't cross the cheekbone. Okay, so broad lighting is probably one of the most, not popular, but the most used type of lighting setup you will see on TV. If you go watch your favorite soaps, Seven-Alarm, Binnelanders, want julle is 'n klomp Afrikaanse mense for the English people, Game of Thrones or whatever the case, but go have a look at how many times you can spot broad lighting in a TV production. Any TV. If Heinrich watched Toxin Chops and my friend Salio watched Willy Valley. I mean, you can. So yeah, go have a look at where they use this. Now, broad lighting is not something I would use on a girl because it's more a, how can I put it, more masculine type of, yeah, it's just a more masculine way of lighting a person. And also, it adds a bit, adds a few pounds. So you don't want to add a few pounds to a girl. You want to make it less. So I would use this type of lighting setup on a, say, very skinny guy or a very, very skinny girl to just add a bit more. However, it's almost the easiest one to set up. And they would often go between broad light and short light, and that would bring me to the next one, which is short light. Let me go back to my slide. A short light is, I'll explain the rules, that it's just the opposite. So where my main light is sort of on the broad side with broad lighting, that light is now still my main light, but my face is turned this way. Now, the main light is on my short side if Heinrich is my photographer. Yeah, and I want to go for the presentation.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. So then I have the short side being lit by my main light. Again, same rules apply. I do not want the, there we go. I do not want the shadow again to touch the cheekbone shadow. I want light in both my eyes. And then obviously my main light is coming from the short side. So it's actually very simple. Broad light, short light. So short light is probably the most used with portraiture, TV, especially on girls and stuff. Obviously, again, rules are there to be broken, but it thins out a person. And I can actually show you, and you'll be surprised on how much it actually does for a person. And my English just left me. Don't laugh. Okay, let's do a short light one. So I want you to turn your body towards the light, and then turn your face towards the light. 3, 2, 1. There was a blink, slight blink. No, that's okay. So can you see, would you agree with me, the right one is more flattering to her than the left one in terms of, I'm so scared of saying this online to you guys. She knows what I mean. She was here yesterday as well. But in terms of flattering for a girl, the right-hand side one is better than the left-hand side one. Do you agree? All the girls say? Yes. Amen. All right, great. So just to recap, both of them, light in both eyes. Okay? And shadow of the nose shouldn't touch the cheekbone shadow. The next one we're going to look at is Rembrandt. And we just figured out an easy way to get a Rembrandt. There we go. All right. Just turn your face slightly. There we go. There we go. Perfect Rembrandt. All right. So Rembrandt lighting was named after the artist Rembrandt. Is it Rembrandt van Rijn, eh? Yeah. So he was a very famous painter, artist. If you don't know him, it's probably because you're too young. But go Google the guy. He was, if you can, maybe you've got a Rembrandt in your house, you don't even know it, and you're a millionaire for that matter. But yeah, if it's not a copy. A Rembrandt is basically created with quite a highlight. You can create about 45-degree angle shooting down. In this case, we actually managed to get it with slightly less than 45, which is also fine. But basically, the nose shadow closes towards the cheek shadow. So her nose shadow fell towards her cheek shadow, and it closed, and it created that triangle. So the triangle under that one eye is key to a Rembrandt. That is where the Rembrandt sort of signature comes from. In this case, we managed to get light in both the eyes, but in this case, it's not a rule. With Rembrandt, you don't have to have light in both eyes. However, the little triangle is key. I like the fact that you maybe add some light in the one eye. It depends on the look that you're going for. So what does Rembrandt work for nicely is that it goes very well with older people, goes well with street photography, goes well with dramatic stuff. A lot of black and white type of photography. If you do a black and white dramatic type of look, Rembrandt is really great to work with. You'll see if you look at pictures, like really classic pictures of old people with a lot of wrinkles and stuff, and it's a black and white image, most likely it's going to be a Rembrandt, however, not always. But I've always also used a Rembrandt with a groom, and I've even used it with a bride. But then you would add, say, a reflector from this side, you would fill in the shadows, and you would have to like really closely look to see that it's actually a Rembrandt, but it works really nice. But I filled it quite a bit, maybe add a hair light, and we're going to play a bit with a hair light just now and add a reflector. So it's a very, you need to be careful to use this because it could be harsh, it could not fit the scene. And that actually brings me to a point where an audience looks at your photographs. I get a lot of people emailing me saying, we would like to book you for our wedding. We love the way you light things. You just know how to work with light. Then it's a person that is a CA at some company or a procureur. They have no clue about photography, but yet they comment on how I light my things. Do I, with every portrait I take, if I now take this lady and I put her here and I'm going to take a photo of her and I'll think of broad light, short light? Not at all. I don't even think about it when I shoot. But I drilled it in myself within the first 2 years of my photography career. So it's now it's a feel thing. For me, I mean, how many of you still think of the rule of thirds when you take a photograph? Or does it just happen? Do you just shoot, and by the way, and then if you sort of realize at home, you look at the screen and say, oh, I actually put it on a third. Because you focused on it for quite a while, and it sort of became part of you. Now, this is for me the same thing. If I want to do something very specific in a studio, and I know I want to do a Rembrandt, then I'll make sure, yes, okay, now I'm going to set up a Rembrandt. But when I'm photographing a bride or groom, I just go. And I will put them at a window, and I start shooting, and I'll say, that works for me, and I'll shoot. And a lot of times I'll get home, I'll either use split light, short light, broad light, I don't know. It's what I feel in the moment. But it's because I know this stuff and I practiced it quite a lot. So, again, this can work for a bride and groom. If you add maybe a bit of shadow, or depending on the background, maybe there's a nice chandelier in the background, or nice greenery, or whatever the case. It completely changes that scene. Okay, the next one, let's go again to PowerPoint. The next one is butterfly lighting. Now you girls are going to love butterfly lighting. Celia, jy gaan hierdie love. Kom. Okay. Give me your beste L model look. Draai vir my jou lyf bietjie na die. Dan sê. Kyk vir my stryd vir die kamera draai gesig bietjie die kant toe. Dan sê. Okay, so you have butterfly lighting on the right. So the big thing about butterfly lighting is, number one, it brings out the cheekbones. Do you see the cheekbones? Suddenly her cheekbones pops. Can you see that? It's amazing, eh? And then what makes it butterfly lighting is the shadow under the nose. Now the one thing you don't want to have is the shadow under the nose to touch the top of the lip. Okay, or cross it, for that matter. You want to keep it away from the lip. And I sort of like it, the shorter the better. The only reason I'm not going to be able to make it shorter now is that if I lower the softbox, you actually make it shorter by lowering your light. But if I lower it now, it's going to be in front of my lens, and I don't want to move it back because then the shadows are going to get harder. All right. So this kind of lighting is used for beauty magazine covers, beauty shots. If you see a real beauty shot for a makeup company, your Elle magazine, any glamour stuff, this is really a glamour type of shot. Also used for guys, but not so much for portraiture because it can make a guy look slightly feminine. But it is used for bodybuilding, if you want to, or fitness stuff. If you've got a guy with no shirt, ladies, watch it. But if you got a guy with no shirt and you light them from the top, the pecs and the abs and the shoulder muscles and the biceps and everything will really stand out. So what they'll also do in retouching with the guys, they will actually darken those shadows a bit so that those pecs and abs and everything pops out even more. But this kind of lighting will help a lot with fitness type of shots. But as you can see, it is really great for girls. So what we're going to do a bit later on is I'm going to add a hair light to light up her hair because her hair falls away now with the background. And then we're also going to add a reflector. And we're going to create that nice beauty shot for you guys. So again, biggest rule I would say is that the shadow under the nose doesn't touch the lip or go over the lip, and try to keep it as short as possible. And you can use the skylight. A lot of times I use butterfly lighting for a bride, if the opportunity is there in terms of there's a skylight coming through the roof, or there's maybe a window that's high up. I can put it like there, and that window would then create a butterfly lighting on it. I might even add a reflector. If I don't have a reflector, I'll use a pillow or a duvet cover or whatever the case, just to reflect some light. I want to state something that I stated later yesterday, but I want to do it now. With regards to lighting, I told you guys that you can, how can I put it? You can break the rules, all right? And the rule is never that the camera is photographing from this side and the light needs to come from this side. And sort of to just show you what I mean by that is, I can move this light over here. Okay, now the light is over there. I want you to look at there. Turn your body that way, just your face. Turn your face more. More. Even more. There we go. Oops, blinker. That's still a butterfly lighting. See the butterfly shadow under the nose? Slightly long for me, I don't like it. I would love it to be shorter. Maybe now, because we're off from the side, we can actually lower the flash without hitting our model. Just to show you that we can shorten that shadow. Come. There we go, slightly shorter. So now as soon as I start filling in with a reflector and bringing in second light and so forth, this shot will be really nice. But it's still a butterfly lighting, but it was just lit from the side. You see that? So, and the same with broad lighting, same with short lighting. Be creative, guys. The easiest way to explain it to you guys is straight from the front, normal 45-degree setup or whatever the case. Okay. The last one is going to be split lighting. So immediately I chose a black and white photo to show you guys because it's also a very dramatic type of lighting or method of lighting. A lot of times we would put a groom at a window, create a black and white photo. Maybe the groom is just fiddling with his watch. The light is coming in from this side, but only one side of his face is lit. The other side is sort of falling off with the shadows because I made the rest of the room dark or whatever, or very similar to this. This is also, this and then Rembrandt lighting is also used a lot in horror movies, the dark alley, the Godfather type of stuff. So dark alley where something's going to happen, a crime or, crime investigation type of movie or series and stuff. So it can work for weddings and portraiture. Just again, be careful of what your interpretation of that photo is. But maybe this is your style. And I would actually really encourage you guys to go and have a look on the internet. What kind of photography do you like? What, let's say you find a photographer that you really like. Go and have a look at what kind of lighting setup. Does he use butterfly lighting all the time? Does he more use short lighting, broad lighting? And then start implementing that in your work. Because that will sort of change the way people interpret your work. So there was something I wanted to say to you guys now. I'll get you that later on. So what I'd love to do is, and JP, as jy ook van julle kan stuur, just to come and add this hairlight for me. That would be great. Okay. Bly net gegraan is dat ek net sien hoe bright is hy. Ja. Lightroom. Ja, jy kan hom actually maak hom nog half van dit. 132. Moeilike math. Sorry. Hy's pikke bright. fine. Ja, ek kan 'n bietjie meer, sorry. Alright, dan sal hy reg wees. Gaan jy omgee my te assisteer? Jy kan eers sit, is fyn. Moenie te opgewonde raak nie. Dis soos 'n reflektor wat groter as jy is. Okay. Kyk vir my. See, that's a good model. Sy kyk vir my and she doesn't look at me, she look at the camera. Yeah, that's perfect. Thanks. 100. Dankie. So I think this was actually a great exercise. Do you see that even though Niels and I, we pros, we work in a studio, we know lights, it's still a trial and error thing with regards to lights. I could see that it's a stop down, stop up. And the reason Niels sort of tapped the flash to go off all the time was to discharge it. So if a flash sort of charges power, so a lot of photographers, they come in the studio maybe first time, second time, or even a year later, and they can't understand. So let's say I'm using a flash at full power on a Heinrich, and I take the shot, and the shot is overexposed. Now I'm dropping the flash power, say by 2 stops. I take the photo of Heinrich, it's again overexposed. Now I drop it even further, I take another photo, now it's suddenly underexposed. But it's because it never discharged. As soon as I take a photo of him, that flash, and even your speed light does that. So remember that. So it recharges to that last setting. Now I'm dropping the power. When I drop the power, first I need to discharge it, just let the shot go, and then take another shot on the same setting. Does that make sense? So you need to. So a lot of times I see photographers at a wedding and they freak out because their flashlight is like they're dropping the power and then it's overexposed, and they drop it, it's still overexposed, and then they drop it and it's underexposed, but they never allow the speed light to discharge. So make sure you just let it pop so it discharges and reloads to the newest setting. Otherwise, you're going to battle up and down the whole time. So what I'd love to do with Nina is to create a beautiful butterfly lighting. So what I've done now is I've added this light. If you didn't see that happening, you probably were thinking of the Matrix. Look, Keanu Reeves is good looking, but it's not that good looking. Shucks, I'm live on TV. Sorry, Keanu, if you're watching. Why are you laughing? Don't you think he's watching me? He's a buddy of mine. No, just too much. Okay, we'll start off there. Kijk, ek gaan vir my. Draai je gezicht bietjie daai kant toe. Oep, te veel. Bring jou kop so bietjie reg op. Draai je gezicht. That's it, perfect. Ah, blinker. I think there was a slight blink there as well. Okay, can you see the nose shadow for me is slightly long, but I can't drop the light now. It's just sort of in my frame. What I'll have to do then is to do this, move it back. But as soon as you move back, so let's talk about that quick. There's a law in light. The bigger the light source, the softer the light. Okay? So a soft box like this, the light would be way softer than this because it's just bigger. And because it's bigger, it wraps around my face, it fills in the shadows, etc., etc. So if I'm over here, that light source compared to my face is quite small. The closer I get to it, if I'm here, it's very big. It's going to wrap the light around me. That's why a small flashlight, speed light on your camera, is when I point it at Heinrich, it creates a really harsh light because it's such a small, light source. If you use the same speed light, you've got a macro lens on and you take a photo of a bee, suddenly it's beautiful soft light. But the flashlight compared to the bee, it's a huge light source actually. And that's why it becomes softer again. So then also remember always that your light source is not necessarily your flash or that flash or the sun. So in this case, the light source is not that softbox or the flashlight. It's the white diffusing panel. The light source that comes in this window is not the sun. It's the glass. Because that's where the light in the room starts. It's the glass. If I point a flash on my camera towards the ceiling, the flash on my camera is not the light source, the ceiling is. Because that's where the the light comes from. And by the way, after the break, I'm going to talk to you about using your on-camera flash. And we're going to talk about how to light a wedding reception, how to use a flash to create those same kind of effects. And it's going to be really great. So after the break, don't run away. You're going to miss out. Okay, so what I've done, again, just to repeat myself, I've added a hair light there like you saw in one shot. We're going to now add what I want to do is I want to soften the shadows. I've moved the flash back now in order to be able to drop it a bit. So I'm going to put it right on top of my camera. See if we can shorten that shadow on her nose. Chin up slightly. There we go. You'll see the shadows are going to be slightly harsher now. But at least the shadow is perfect. Look at that. Okay, now I'm going to blow your mind. Look what a reflector will do to this. She's going to look like an L model now. Not that she doesn't already, but anyways. So gou in die gesig, vat hom gou in jou hand ook. Toe maar, kyk hom. Thanks. En train daai hoogte, ja, skryt. Ek net gekyk of hy in die shot is. Hy's perfect. Ek wil hom so 'n bietjie lig die kant. Jy kan hom so 'n bietjie drop vir my, Nina. As hy net so. Okay, great. So I'm creating an angle. So light moves like a snooker ball. If you hit a snooker ball towards that corner, it's going to go that way. So it goes like this and this. Light moves the same way. So I want this flash to bounce down on the reflector and then towards the model to take out the shadows. Ek dink jy het dalk so klein bietjie geblink. Hy skuif al weer op. Ek gaan gou nog eenetjie vat. Look at that. Simple, eh? So how many of you believe me I can create almost the same kind of shot with a speed light? Yeah, you were here yesterday. You saw it happening. You cheater. So I just want to check the shot. How can I improve it? I'm going to add just a bit of light on this. Just like a quarter of a stop. There we go. A third of a stop, actually, before I get knocked in the internet. To you guys, I can lie, but you can never lie to the internet. Okay, is jy reg? Gaan hy 1, 2. I can't count to 3 with her, she'll blink. Look at that. So I just up the main light just a bit, and I'm going to try and put them next to each other. There we go. So I up the exposure on that one just a bit, just to bring out a bit more. And also it's better for the skin to slightly up the exposure. If you darken it a bit, the skin looks a bit harsher. I can perhaps even go, let's go one more up, just for the sake of it. Might be over now. No, I actually like it. So it's slightly over. You can see the cheekbones and the forehead are slightly blown out. Can you see that? But I think for editing purposes, that one might work nicely. Okay, come on. Oh, someone net daar sit. Thanks. Ek het hom, is that? Of skryf hom maar net daar aan. Thanks, Celia. So guys, if you look at this, it is really simple. Do you agree? But can you see how from a shadow, so if I switch off, look what happens if I switch off the camera, the flashes. I'm just going to take a photo without any flashes. Look at that. So there's my canvas. That's my canvas, guys. And I used flash to light it all up. And the same with out there. So don't get confused when you're now photographing a bride 12 o'clock in the afternoon outside. Shadows is still your canvas. Unfortunately, due to ambient light and the sunlight, a lot of the canvas has already been filled with paint. But there is still painting to be done, whether it's just angling or using a shadow of a tree. So you put your client in the shadow of the tree, you get those sunshine rays coming through the trees, whether you backlit or not, or whether you use a reflector to add it to them. You get what I'm saying? So I think this is sort of, for you guys, a really good example of canvas and then painting. Simple. I want to actually do a shot. Kan jy gou weer daai reflector bring asseblief, John? It's always nice when your friends comes to your workshops. So all I want you to do for this one, sit hom vir my reg op. Whoa. Sit hom neer op die grond. Sorry for you guys, but I just want to show you. So I want you to look. I'm actually going to do this. We're going to do a short light. I want you to turn your body towards the people. Okay. Come back a bit. Turn your face that way. Say. Fluister help nie met 'n lapel nie, nee. Draai jy gesiggie nog klein bietjie. There we go. Nog klein bietjie. That's it. Okay, we'll go now. That's not. Oh, I switched it off. Blonde moment. Oh, blinker. There we go. That's still over. That's fine. I'm going to drop the power slightly for this one. There we go. One more. Turn your face a bit more. There we go. A bit more face turn for me. Okay. There we go. All right. So that is close to a Rembrandt short light. Okay. What I wanted to show you guys and why I'm doing this exercise is I will actually one more where I bring it very close like that. Just want to show you. Celia, so I'm net so klein bietjie want hy's in my shot. There we go. Turn your face more. There we go. Okay, that's going to be sort of the shot. There we go. All right. Now you can see the reflector on this cheekbone. And sort of on the neckline, on her ear. You see that? Look what happens. Because this is all white, I've got bouncing coming from all sorts of directions. So I'm shooting at, I think, a 5.6. Yeah. And the reason for that is I want to block out, and that's why I showed you flash off. The shot was basically dark. The bird of light was this light here, and maybe the light coming in from the window, etc., etc. So look what happened if you just turn the black side towards her, and you want to create a bit of mood. So I'm making sure now this flash is not going to bounce from anything else. There we go. So this is for a bit more mood. And that's why I said to you guys, thanks Celia. That's why I said to you guys, if you use a short light, broad light, you can actually then use a reflector or a second light and fill in the shadows and make it really soft and nice instead of a shot, because not everybody likes a shot like this. It's a very specific kind of shot. Most people would probably go for something like this. So it really depends on your style and what you. Yesterday there was a lady here. She does a lot of band photography, and she showed me a couple of pictures on her cell phone. She photographs them with a beauty dish, with a honeycomb grit on it. And that honeycomb grit focuses light. So if I have, this is a beauty dish for those of you who didn't know. So if I would put a honeycomb grit on it, it will focus the light. And now you get different angles on a honeycomb grit, different degrees. But let's say it creates a very small sort of spotlight, if I can call it that. It would actually create the same quality of light, in other words, softness, but the light will only be focused here, and the rest will start falling into shadows because of the focus of the honeycomb grid. So she does that, and she makes them black and white, and she showed that, and it is really outstanding images. Maybe she's watching, but I was very impressed by her photography. It was black and white, guy sitting with a guitar, drummer, basses, it was brilliantly lit. Black and white. So it's simple. Pop it in, make it black and white, nice contrast, and that's about it. But because of her lighting, her photos just absolutely popped. So what I want you guys to sort of think about is, again, coming back to the quality of light is sort of equal to the size of your light source. So I would sometimes at weddings, or maybe just an engagement shoot, or a matric farewell portrait, whatever the case, use a big wall like that. And in fact, in my previous workshop I presented here last year, I used that wall to light a couple. Were you here? No, you weren't. So I would use that wall to then light the couple, because it's a huge wall, therefore soft light. Can I bounce, for instance, from a wall that's slightly like beige? That one is actually slightly beige. Yes, you will just have to adjust the color a bit. And sometimes you can even bounce off a red one. Obviously, you might then think, okay, I'm going to use a black and white photo, but I can still use it for my black and white photo to bounce off a red wall, because who then cares about the red? Get what I'm saying? So don't let anything. I showed a friend a while ago, he was photographing at a wedding venue, and the dance floor was outside, and behind him was the building, but it was literally, there was no tent or anything. And I told him to sort of bounce off the pillars, or just a pillar. I've bounced outside in the middle of the day. I've taken the couple outside. You will not believe me, but try it one day. Is, let's say he's the groom. There's a tree over here. It was 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I brought him quite close to me, because obviously a speedlight doesn't have that much power. We were in the shadow of the trees. I let him stand in front of me, pointed the flash of my camera to the bark of the tree. It was quite a wide tree, about this wide. And I bounced the flash off the tree, created nice lighting for my groom. But we'll speak about that a bit later on with regards to flashlights. Let's go with a couple of questions. If you guys on the internet have a couple of questions, please pop in those questions, and they will read your question out to me, and then I will answer that. If you guys have a question, just pop up your hand so we can give you the mic, so that the guys on the internet side can just hear your question as well. But feel free, any questions? Oh my goodness. Thank goodness. Thanks. Testing. Savaka. Okay, great.
Thanks, Kobus. I see you used quite a large hair light.
Yeah.
And it makes it quite a volume of light,
Yeah.
and quite soft. So that's a recommendation as well.
No, really the reason I used the big one is just because it's available. Because they fit it in the studio. If I would typically use a hair light, I might actually use a very spotlight type of thing, maybe a what they call a reflector with a honeycomb grid on it, just to light the hair. But it also really depends on the kind of shot you want to create. Again, for this, it was actually working nicely because it's very soft light. It works with the black hair. I could have maybe dropped the power on it even more, but getting nearless up and down, it's more just to show you guys rather than a perfect shot. But for me, it works. The light on her shoulders is really nice. There on a neckline, it's really soft. Even coming on her cheekbones from the back, you can see the rim on her cheeks there. And then again, with her black hair, I think it works brilliantly. But I've used speed lights, just a speed line on a hair light in the studio. Because maybe if you start out, you have got one stereo light like that, but nothing stops you from hanging a speed light behind her on the wall or on the roof with a trigger and shooting the speed light down at her from the back. So, yes. Yeah.
Obviously, these lighting techniques it's much easier to apply it on an individual.
Yeah.
But the minute you have a couple or a family, it becomes complicated. So how do you apply these techniques? I mean, you have shorter ones,
Yeah. So you've got your angle of lights coming in. Sorry, guys. Let's start with a couple. So let's say there's a groom with her. I will always have the bride sort of try and get her to have a short light on her. The groom is secondary. I would have him short light, broad light, whatever works for that portrait. It doesn't really matter. But I want the bride to look perfect. So that you will always focus on the bride. Also, when I have a bride and groom standing next to each other, he's got a bride next to him, I'm shooting at f1.4. My focus will always be on the bride. If the groom is slightly out of focus, it's okay. Bride needs to be in focus. Same with lighting setup. If you go bigger, let's say bride and groom, maybe 2 bridesmaids, or it's a family, there's 2 kids. Again, mom. Your main subject is mom in the family portrait. In a bride-groom photo, your main is the girls. Firstly, the bride, but then the bridesmaid also wants to look nice, so you'll turn the bridesmaid also and try to get her to be a short light. If it's a broad light, it's not a train smash. Because now, kan jy gaan opstaan? So, kom staan gou vir my net so. Okay. So, I'm the bridesmaid. That's the light. So, let's say normally it would be the groom. Kom staan gou vir my hier. He's the groom. Okay, he's got a groomsman next to him. She's the bride, I'm the bridesmaid. Okay? Now the problem is, I don't want the bride, but at the camera. I don't want, now she's got now short light on her because of this. I don't want to now also have the bridesmaid look away from her. Do you get what I'm saying? Because then it's like, why is everyone looking that way? Wat is daar? Is there a nice assistant or groomsman standing there? So now my problem is if I have the bride looking there, it becomes broad light for the bridesmaid. If it doesn't work for the bridesmaid in terms of the way she looks, let's say it adds a couple of pounds. Call a spade a spade. Adds a couple of pounds to the bridesmaid. I'll change her up with the groomsman. I'll put the groomsman that side and the bridesmaid on the groom's side. Now suddenly she's looking that way and it looks great, but she's got short light on her. Yes, thank you, Tom. All right, so before we go on, I want to show you one amazing example. Yeah. Okay, great. Ask them.
Okay, so Natalie asked, "Hi all. When using my speed light, I battle to avoid shine on the face in darker skin tones. When bouncing the light, where everything else is perfectly exposed, where should everything be perfectly exposed?"
Okay, Natalie, thank you very much for your question. I like your question. Sorry for the answer now, but after the break, I'm going to speak specifically on speed lights, and we're going to talk about how to bounce your speed light and how to create beautiful soft light with your speed light. So make sure to pop in still after the break for the second session, and I'm sure your question will be answered. If it's not answered, please then just send another question. Say, it's not quite what I've asked, and you can ask again, and then I'll definitely answer your question, okay?
The next question from Lawrence, I don't really quite understand the question. He said, "Hi, Light Lounge. Ask Kobus, how does one avoid all the fancy food at weddings?"
What's his name?
Lawrence Peterson.
Lawrence, does it look like I'm avoiding the food? If you have the answer, Lawrence, please pop it in the comment box. I need your help, please.
Then the last one is from Ulrich Farmer. What presets do you use? If it's your own, do you sell it?
I actually have not created my own yet. In the past I did, but I actually bought quite a few. I use the Dirty Boots, Messy Hair presets, as well as the, I always forget how to pronounce it, but it's help me out, Tribunotapello? Yeah. Yeah, but mainly these days actually Dirty Boots. So go look at Dirty Boots, Messy Hair's couple of presets. Have I ever altered them to suit my style? So I didn't buy them and just apply them. All of them are slightly tweaked, and I tweak it on every single photo as well. Guys, just a big heads up. Don't buy a preset and think it's going to be a one-click magic. There's no company out there that sells presets. You can click on the preset and it makes your photo look, boom, beautiful. It's not going to happen. You're going to be disappointed. Presets are there as a base, and then you need to tweak it to suit your needs. And those tweaks you can then sort of save because it adds to your style, and then it can maybe work as a one-click wonder. But there will always be a couple of adjustments, okay?
Dirty Boots. And Jenny was asking Dirty Boots. What's the other one?
That's the one I always forget to... No. Dirty Boots Messy Hair is one company. Tribe Archipelago is the other one. Thank you for the... Jeez, you mean? Come to me afterwards, I'll show it to you. Okay, shot, is that it? Okay, so there's a shot I want to create a shot, and I want to show you guys. I'm actually going to blow you away now, I think. There we go. Guys on the internet, please feel free to ask questions if you just joined. We're talking lighting, and you're more than welcome to ask us a couple of questions in the comment box. They will read the questions to me and I'll answer it for you. And you guys, please ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. It's stupid people who don't ask questions. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this one, because it's so long. Okay, I'm going to drop this slightly. Okay, there we go. Okay, turn your body slightly towards the flash more. There we go. Sounds a bit like I can do. There we go. Perfect. Turn your face towards the flash as well. Let me see levelly. There we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. Okay. Can you see the difference, guys? It's crazy. Can you now understand why I said in the beginning that I see a lot of people just light their subject? They use the sun, they use the flash, they use this, they use that, but they have no idea what they're doing. If you don't fill these shadows, and it's even darker, then, I mean, bring gou vir my weer daai reflector. Staan gou gou. So imagine, ek moet so versigtig wees.
Time to reflect.
Imagine she's my size, okay? And I'm turning her towards this. Look what the black is going to do now. Lig 'n bietjie hoor. Jy kan redelik naby vat, hoor. Ek sou vir jou sê as jy my shot is. Nee, wanneer jy nou wegstaan van hom. Staan so 'n bietjie ver met jou arm, Silje. There we go. Kom jy's 'n bietjie nader aan my. That's it. Okay, that's no broad lighting, maar dit maak nou nie saak. This is about the body. So I've taken away more of the light coming in. So the more of the light coming in from this side you take away, the skinnier she's going to look. Okay? In her case, we don't want to make her look even more skinny. But you can see what I mean. And even this broad light, because there's now, it's actually a Rembrandt that hey. But even that thins it out more because we've added shadows from the one side now. Okay, more questions? We've got about 10 minutes to go. So please ask me.
So if, for example, you would do a maternity shoot
Yeah.
with natural lighting and you buy a window, then you would actually have her face the window because you want to make her tummy stand. You don't want to like...
Yes, you can definitely make her face the window, but it also depends on the client. It's not every mom that's very comfortable with her tummy. We all know a pregnant lady is beautiful, and there's nothing more beautiful than a beautiful tummy. But it depends on the client. If the client is a bit wary of it and doesn't really want to show the tummy, then turn her away. Make it look slightly, it's about the client. If you've got a very confident client who even pushes out a bit more, then by all means do that. You can even use a type of a split light to sort of, add a bit of mood and stuff to it. A split light maybe from behind. So let's say, staan gou vir my hier. She's not pregnant, that I know of. So let's say, I just want to create, let's say she's pregnant and she's standing like this now. That's still the camera, okay? But my main light, I'm maybe shooting from this direction. So it's going to be a split light from sort of a whole different direction. You get what I'm saying? But now there's going to be a rim light on the tummy, coming all the way over her chest and then over her face. And then if you want, and you've got a second light, you can fill it with a very, very soft light just to break those heavy shadows from this side. But your main light is this one. Get what I'm saying? So that's something that you can also consider. Okay, cool question, thanks.
It's not a question as much as just an observation in terms of when I shoot, I always shoot with computer and editing in mind because I know what I can do. And you can create the most perfect lighting setup, but you can go and stuff it up in editing.
Yeah, very true.
And a lot of people do that. You look at the original photo and you go, wow, you shouldn't have done anything. And they just killed it in editing. So yeah, that's just an observation more than a question.
I agree with you. With photography, I think, apart now from business, if we talk just photography and we talk editing, I think that, before I fiddle with the mic in my hand and it goes doof, doof, doof on the live feed, if you think of photography in terms of shooting and editing, apart from the business side, I would say editing is almost 60 to 70% of the photo, where shooting it is only 40%. Because it's one thing shooting it, but editing it is the interpretation of color. That includes white balance, and then actually contrast, because it's very easy to add too much contrast or too little, add too much warmth or too little, to create haha oranges, whatever the case, skin tones. So editing, guys, is huge. More questions?
Just for interest sake, your camera settings, your white balance, is it natural, standard?
Most of the time when I shoot outside, because I shoot raw, I shoot an auto white balance. However, if I get to the reception, I would then custom white balance. I would actually try tungsten settings, see if it works. If it doesn't work, I'll go custom. And then set my white balance. And it's just to make my editing easier that evening, rather than having to change the white balance on the editing. But outside, I check every single photo's white balance. Every single photo that I edit, I check the white balance. So I might as well do it auto white balance anyways.
Also, have you ever played with a front curtain and back curtain with regards to DSLR?
I have, but I don't really use it. Just because it's not the way I shoot. It's not the style of shooting. We'll touch on that a bit when we go to speedlight after the break. Okay.
This may be a stupid question, but
There's no
I'm
such
new
thing.
in this photography thing. If you do a portrait shot and like myself now, you've got a double chin, but the client wants you to type of like hide it. Can you use lighting, and which lighting would you use?
You can probably use a bit of lighting, but I've got an easier way. I'm just trying to think of who I think the person that I saw it from, because I don't want to teach a method and say it was my own. I'm just trying to remember her name. Sue Bryce. So there's a lady, Sue Bryce, on the internet. Go look at it. She's got a brilliant posing course on how specifically to pose ladies. She is absolutely probably the best posing teacher out there. But because I also have a bit of a double chin, what she teaches is, a lot of times you photograph the moms, say, Mom, I don't want to see your nostrils, please. Rather do this. So you ask them to drop their chin. Immediately they become like worried about their double chin. And all you do is you ask them to bring the chin towards the camera. So you do that. So on the camera, it doesn't look weird. It actually works. Because if you photograph me from that side, obviously it's going to look weird. I'm going to look like an Egyptian, you know what I'm saying? But if you push your chin towards the camera, it brings that out. And if you want to sort of take away even more, you can ask them to put their tongue on their palate. So if you, or suck it in. So I'd rather use that method than trying to figure it out with lighting. Lighting is not going to help you much. Okay. And then they also need to realize at the end of the day, it is what it is. Avoid the wedding food. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Come on, guys. I'm sure you've got questions. All right, so I also want to say this, that by the end of the day, when we have our questions and answer session, right at the end of the day, you can actually ask me questions with regards to anything, photography, wedding photography-wise, or photography-wise, not just on what we're talking today. So I'm going to open up the floor at the end of the day. So if you start writing down your questions, and then you can bombard me the last half an hour of the second session with some other photography-related questions. I think we're going to take the break, Niels. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure. It's like 5 minutes to left.
Yeah. So we'll be back, what time?
At
11 o'clock sharp. We start with the next live feed. So please come in 5 to 11 so that we can start right on time. If during the break you've got maybe questions, I'd like you to ask me, but then I'm going to ask you, why didn't you ask it now in this session? But feel free to come and chat to me if you want to, and I'll see you at 11.